no-ip.com. This website allows you to create a host name, a permanent host name for your temporary dynamic IP address at home. In other words, I could go to no-ip.com and I could create a permanent host name or a permanent domain name like ankit.no-ip.com, which will always point to my current IP address, whatever that dynamic temporary current IP address I have. So, let me open up this website. So if all of you look at the screen, this is what this website looks like. It says dynamic IP address, no problem, pointed to a static hostname for easy remote access. So, see, another use of this website is that maybe you want to remotely access your home computer from anywhere on the internet. So by creating a host name for your dynamic IP address, you can easily do that. Right? So from anywhere in the world, you can access your computer. So let's assume I created something like ankit.no-ip.com. So now what I do is, in this server builder lost door, I'm gonna type ankit.no-ip.com. So instead of typing my IP address, I will type my host name, my dynamic host name or whatever you want to call it. And now what happens is, when I build the server and infect the victim's computer, no matter what my IP address is, no matter when the victim comes online for the rest of my life, even if my IP address keeps changing, the victim's computer will always be connected back to my computer. So I don't need to worry about antiviruses anymore. I don't need to worry about finding out the victim's IP address. I don't need to worry whether the victim has a dynamic IP address, and I also don't need to worry if I have a dynamic IP address. By combining lost door with no-ip.com, most of the problems related to using Trojans have now been countered or gotten rid of. Now, just like no-ip.com, there's another very interesting website known as Dynamic DNS. DYN DNS. So let me actually just do a Google search and open up the website for all of you. Dynamic DNS. So the website address is dyn.com or din.com. It pretty much does the same thing. It allows you to create a domain name for your dynamic IP address. So typically you got to click on remote access. This is a paid service, but it's completely worth it if you're planning to use a Trojan like Lost Door on a lot of victims around the world. Because then you don't need to worry about finding out the victim's IP address ever again. And the victim will always connect back to you. So you have no-ip.com and also you have din.com. As simple as that. Now, just like Lost Door is a fully undetectable Trojan or a FUD Trojan, you have a few other FUD Trojans which I like to actually recommend to all of you. Lost Door is fabulous. Lost Door works, but just in case it stops working or it starts getting detected by antivirus software, I like to recommend another fully undetectable Trojan to all of you. It's called Nuclear Rat. Nuclear Rat. Let me quickly give a demonstration of Nuclear Rat to all of you. So the funda is pretty much the same as Lost Door. If all of you look at the screen, this is what Nuclear Rat looks like. You got to first click on Create Server. It will ask you to enter the IP address of your own computer. It says reverse connection. So when the victim connects to you, it is often known as reverse connection. So you enter your own IP, or you type in the dynamic, the node-ip.com or the DNS.com hostname. Then you can choose the installation options, where you can choose the file name. So I would say system32 something. Then the DLL name, subfolder, the startup methods, then what options you want. Melt server option, I believe, is it basically will automatically get deleted after it's been installed. You can have some messages that get displayed. It records some stuff, and so on. So that's basically how, and once you basically execute it, just choose where you want to save it. So that's basically how you can use Nuclear Rat to create your own server, and then you can even share that server with different IP addresses or with different victims. So the concept is just like Lost Door. It just looks different, and it's a different software. One more FUD Trojan which I like to recommend to all of you is Poison IV. Poison IV. So you had Nuclear Rat, Lost Door, and then Poison IV. All are great examples of FUD Trojans that allow you to actually create your own Trojans from scratch, so that you can infect somebody else's computer and start controlling that person's computer. Now, some of these Trojans which use a reverse connection, where the victim connects to you, you may have to do some port forwarding on your router, so that when the connection comes from that remote system to your machine, if you have a router, maybe a Wi-Fi router or something, then it knows where to forward the connection. So you can go to this website portforward.com to get instructions on how to do the forwarding. You can also visit no-ip.com or din.com to get details on what kind of forwarding you need to do for this to work properly. Now typically, how do these Trojans work? Right? So what happens is that once you infect the victim's computer with a Trojan, a port gets opened on it. So imagine I infect your computer with NetBus. Forget about reverse connections for a minute. I infect your computer with NetBus. It will open a port on your machine. And when I try to connect to your port, I will be connect to your computer. I'll be connecting to that particular port on your computer. So in a regular Trojan, a port gets opened on victim's computer, and then attacker connects to that port. So that's what happens in a regular Trojan. In a reverse Trojan, something similar happens. In a reverse Trojan, a port gets opened on attacker's computer, and then the victim connects to that port. So that's the difference between a regular Trojan and a reverse Trojan. Now if you go to this particular website, pcsecurityworld.com/75/common Trojan ports or HTML. There's an entire list of different port numbers that are commonly used by popular Trojans. So I can quickly open it for all of you, just to give all of you an idea of the information that's there on this particular website. So if all of you look at the screen, it says list of ports used by Trojans, and there's an entire list of popular Trojans and the various port numbers that they use on your computer. Now at this stage, I like to actually talk a little bit about some advanced Trojans as well. And I would like to call them backdoors. Later on in this course, we'll be discussing backdoors in detail. Imagine the following scenario. Step number 1 is that the attacker backdoors a PDF file, or maybe an Excel file, or maybe a Word document, or maybe a malicious link. Step number 2, attacker sends that to victim. So the big difference here is you are sending a PDF file to the victim. See, Trojans, you're still sending an exe file. Even if you're using an exe binder, you're still sending an exe file to the victim. And if the victim is a little bit technical, or if he's aware, he will actually not use or not open the exe file. But in backdoors, you could actually backdoor a PDF file, an Excel file, a Word document, or a malicious link, and send that to the victim. And then the victim opens it, gets infected, and a reverse shell connection gets established between victim and attacker. And now the attacker has shell access to victim's computer, which means that using shell commands, victim computer can be controlled. So attacker controls victim's computer. So these are the 4 simple steps that can be used to infect the victim's computer. I'll call it backdoors or reverse shell attacks. So how to get shell access to the victim's computer? You keep hearing hackers talking about, oh, I got shell access to the victim's computer, or I execute a reverse shell attack. So that's pretty much what happens in a reverse shell attack, or when you use a backdoor to kind of enter the victim's computer. How do you do all of this? Using Metasploit and Metasploit. So this is an ultimate form of a Trojan, which is pretty difficult to detect and pretty easy to execute. And Metasploit comes with various different software that you can use at each step here. I could also add an additional step which is optional. You encode the file to avoid antivirus detection. So you encode the PDF file using some encoding, and then you send the file to the victim. So imagine being able to hide a Trojan inside a PDF file, Excel file, Word document, or just set up a server which is a malicious link, and the victim clicks on that link or opens any of these attachments which are generally conceived to be safe, and their computer gets infected. So we will be discussing that later on in this particular course. Right now it is more of a fundamental introduction to Trojans. But I just wanted all of you to know that there is an advanced version to this as well. So we have discussed popular Trojan ports that give you information about, typically if you find a particular port open on your computer and you don't know whether it's a regular application or whether it's a Trojan port, you can access this particular website and check on this website. Now you can actually leave a backdoor or a rootkit on the victim's computer using ncat. In other words, you can actually imagine that you go to your friend's house and your friend leaves you alone with his computer for a few minutes. He leaves the room and you're alone with his computer for a few minutes. So you could actually leave a backdoor or a rootkit on your friend's computer. And you can do that using the ncat software that we saw earlier on in this particular course. So let us see how you can do that. So I open up MS-DOS and I'm going to type this command. So first of all of you can copy this command down. I'll give all of you a couple of minutes to do that. I'm writing it in Notepad so all of you can see it properly. It is ncat -L, L means listen option, followed by the IP address on your own machine, followed by the port number on which you want to open this connection, followed by --exec, which means execute, and then followed by the exe file, which basically opens that file for you, or which basically means that as soon as somebody connects to port 8000 on the victim's computer, the notepad.exe file will get executed. So that's what this command will do. Instead of notepad.exe, you could also execute some virus or some Trojan. Right? So imagine I go to the victim's computer or my friend's computer, I copy the Trojan to his computer, but I don't execute it. Instead, I just type this command into MS-DOS. So let's do that. So this command has been, okay, I'll have to manually type it in. I can't copy it. So I'm just going to type this command. I press enter. And the command has been executed on the victim's computer. So now, to actually run that notepad file, let's see what I need to do. I just open up another MS-DOS prompt, and imagine this is on the criminal's computer. And I paste that command, and within a few seconds, if you notice, the notepad file has opened on the victim's computer. So ncat allows you to create a server or a backdoor that is listening for a connection on a particular port, which in this case was port 8000. And as soon as somebody connects to port 8000 on the victim's computer, automatically the notepad.exe file gets executed or gets opened. And instead of the notepad.exe file, we could also execute some other malicious file which could cause serious damage to the victim's computer. Now, another way in which you can actually hide a Trojan or make it harder for the victim to understand what a Trojan, whether it's a Trojan or not, there's a software called Restorator. Restorator 2007 is basically a pretty old software, but it allows you to change the images, icons, dialog boxes, menus, and the text that gets displayed in an exe file or a DLL file. So you can customize the look and feel of the exe file so that the victim will not even know that it's a Trojan or some kind of virus. Now, Trojans have been around for a very long time, and traditionally the Trojans only existed on computers and laptops. But nowadays we have Trojans for mobile phones as well. And one of the first Trojans that became very popular on the mobile phone platform was a few years ago when BlackBerry and BBM Messenger was very popular. The name of the Trojan was ZS Trojan. And what it did was, once your mobile phone was infected with the ZS Trojan, it would steal all the saved passwords from your phone, it would forward or delete messages from your phone, and it will also block calls from certain numbers to your phone. So ZS Trojan was the first major outbreak of mobile phone Trojans, or for the mobile phone platform. Even the Android platform has not been spared. One of the first major attacks on the Android platform was a Trojan or a virus called Droid Dreams. What it did was, it basically infected thousands of legitimate or regular apps in the Android Play Store. And people would just download that app thinking that it's a regular app, but actually the app that they're downloading had a Trojan hidden inside it. And the names of these apps would be very attractive, like, XXX photos, or some game, or some background wallpaper, something. So attractive apps were used to hide Trojans inside them, and then people would download them from the official app store, and actually they are Trojans that would spy upon their transactions, transfer data from their Android phone back to the criminal. Now, just the way you have Trojans, you also have something known as keyloggers. Keyloggers are basically tools that once installed on your computer, whatever keys you're pressing on your computer will get recorded in the keylogger's log file, and then periodically, maybe once a week or once a month or on a particular date, the log file containing everything that you have typed on your computer will get sent back to the criminal. And one of my favorite keyloggers is a software called Refog. R-E-F-O-G. Refog. So I'm just going to try and open up Refog on my computer. Let me open up the latest version. I may have to install it. So give me a minute while I quickly install it. And let's launch the Refog keylogger. So as you can see, it takes hardly a few seconds to install this keylogger. So if you are at your friend's house, you can quickly install it on your friend's computer and then set it up in such a way that it will record all the keys that your friend is typing, and maybe next week or X number of days later, it will automatically email the keylogger file to you, or the keylogger log file to you. So I'm just waiting for Refog to open up on my computer so I can give a demonstration to all of you. It's taking some time to open. Let's just wait.